I mean, it's crazy because right now you probably have the most access to film and television in your entire life in the history of the world. Like literally everything is at your fingertips. You can watch anything. And back to Cam's credit, yeah, people aren't watching film. You know, they're watching whatever the slop that gets kind of fed to them. Welcome everybody to Blerdlines. This is your man Cam. With me as always is
the Last Action Negro, Cam 2.
As well as
Josh, who is hating on that jersey that Cam is wearing.
And as always, bringing up the rear.
That's a...
And what's going on?
Wait. Before we get started,
I'm not. I'm totally messing with you. I'm totally messing with you. I'm totally messing with you. If you was wearing a Chelsea jersey, I'd have more to say.
You know,
fair.
Just for everybody out there, football season has begun again, and our man Cam is wearing his Broncos jersey, like of a very long fan. So just so you have a little bit of context. But yes, that's football season has now begun. And you know, next 18 weeks is going to be heartbreak and champions.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. As a Giants fan, I have nothing to add.
Yeah, I feel bad for you. But aside from sports, we're back talking about like a little grab bag of a bunch of things. One of the things that kind of popped up and we were having a conversation about was the film Weapons, and we're going to do a full-on review of it later. But that also sparked a conversation about original IP and how this year a lot of the movies that are original have been performing well, better than a lot of these big blockbusters that spend $100-200 million a year. And it got so much that notoriety that you know our man's over in Disney is like, yeah, you know, maybe to win back Gen Z and man, we should start doing more like original stuff as opposed to just all these franchises and fucking old IPs that we already have, the Disneys, the Marvels, and the Star Wars and that kind of thing. So, but it got us thinking as well, like, you know, what other IP movies this year have come out that have been really good that are actually original ideas and not tied to an existing IP. I shouldn't say original idea because there's nothing new under the sun, but fresh takes on different things that people are out there. So besides Weapons, like what else have you guys seen out there that kind of fits that bill?
Well, I just want to say, can you put that back up for a second? I just want to say something about that headline. Disney's Boy Trouble. Studio seeks original IP to win back Gen Z men amid Marvel Lucasfilm struggles.
Already problematic.
Well, the title is so wordy and long. It's just stupid and says nothing. Absolutely nothing. They're struggling. We're struggling how? Like, what's the thing? I guess you got to read the article. But anyway, Weapons, much like Sinners and a few others, really are showing that there's an appetite for stuff that's not necessarily tied to a franchise or to Marvel or DC. I think DC is kind of reinvigorated with some of the stuff that they're doing, the interest in superhero films, but a lot of that has fallen by the wayside in favor of stuff that you're getting a new experience entirely, right? So you see Apple was investing in a lot of original stuff, both in their TV and in their film studio. You see now Warner Brothers Studio, the newly christened Warner Brothers Studio, the I guess butterfly from the dead carcass of Warner Brothers Discovery, is now saying that they're going to invest only in 2 DC films next year and 6 original films, like 6 more so than their franchise stuff and the comic book stuff. So I think this year has been a good step forward for cinema in general. One of the others that I've talked to you guys about is Freaky Tales, which is an anthology film set against the backdrop of 1987 Oakland, California. And it's shot, it looks like it's shot on film. I have to double check. I'm pretty sure it is, but nowadays you never know. There's lots of filters and ways to trick it out in post-production. But it gives you this sense of stepping outside of space and time and literally back to 1987. Some aspects of it, I think, visually evoke that feeling. You don't feel like this is something made today that's set in the past, which is sometimes what a lot of these period pieces feel like.
Before you go any further, D'Angelo, I'm going to say it wasn't shot on film. It was shot filmed digitally using the Arri Alexa mini cameras with the Arri RAW format.
Again, as I said, I didn't want to say that it was because I know that there are cameras that do that. There are digital cameras that do that.
Add grain and
exactly
all sorts of other stuff to it.
And I knew it was
whatever,
a little
whatever
too
doesn't
much.
do that. Whatever doesn't do that in the camera, they can do in post.
Right, and I knew it was too much because there were cigarette burns like all over the place, and I said to myself, "There's no way that many reels are switched out for a 2-hour film." Knowing that because I was a projectionist at one point in my life, some point, but all to say, Freaky Tales, and then there was another one, Death of a Unicorn, which I absolutely love. Paul Rudd, Jenna Ortega. A very unique horror film that also uses comedy, but it uses a real myth to debunk a belief about, the legends of, unicorns. A lot of Disney era and more modern 21st century has unicorns as, rainbow coming out their butt and lollipops and gumdrops, but in a lot of medieval art and before, unicorns were vicious and very vicious and sadistic, and they didn't have love for humans in terms of that way that goes. So they brought that back to this in the storytelling, and it worked really well. So a lot of original stuff this year, and a lot of it really worked. Even when it didn't make money, it was very critically successful.
Yeah, and I was going to say the most successful original film officially now is Ryan Coogler's Sinners. Mm-hmm. I think it's closer to 300 million now, but it's the highest grossing original film I think in the last 10 years, something crazy like that, which is original. But again, from something that's not tied to
it is original. Kind of it's original. I mean, I wouldn't put the air quotes on it because of it features familiar iconography, but the story itself is something that he wrote, and it's just nothing. There's nothing else. I mean, there's other things like it, but it's an original story with new characters and a new backdrop and all that stuff. That makes it original.
Yeah. And so, but I think that's good because now, like you said, just much with Warner Brothers, they're kind of shifting to that too, right? Like they'll do those 2 DC movies, smart, and then they'll do a bunch of original stuff and see what happens. And honestly, they're at a point now where they're just trying to find a new IP to start to expand. Like recently on Netflix, KPop Demon Hunters dropped, and that's like a worldwide phenomenon on social media, on music, on all that stuff. So
can someone explain that to me? Like,
honestly, I can give you two. The quick version is it's the Sony Animation Studio team that did Spider-Verse, Miles and stuff. So that's one.
Oh,
2,
okay.
you have K-pop, which is in terms of the zeitgeist of what's going on right now, especially for Gen Z and Gen Alpha. Like K-pop is very, very, very important and very big for that group right there. And then you have a dope ass animation studio, the K-pop music phenomenon that all the kids like. Put those 2 things together, boom, and it mixes a lot of Korean mythology as well. It has a lot of good themes for women, young women, and that kind of thing. So it is a solid film and kind of animation, but it just hit all the right things at the right time.
You were trying to figure out why this was such a big deal, D'Angelo?
Yeah, I don't understand this. But then again, I'm not a part of the generation.
He's not a pop culture. He's not a big pop culture guy. So
no, yeah, I'm adverse to pop culture.
The surface level answer for this
closest me.
K-pop is huge. Just K-pop in general.
And I guess it was a rhetorical question. I'm not that out of touch with it.
Yeah, I was like, you heard of K-pop?
I've heard of it. I think I
it is D'Angelo's repulsion to most things that are popular,
anti-intellectual. That's my.
But also, if everybody likes it, D'Angelo probably more often than not.
Well, that's also a good point. So that it's hard to judge either way.
But to keep it simple, K-pop obviously is a huge deal in the real world music. The people who voice the characters, their songs have been like going up on the charts. So that has that audience right there. Then you've coupled it with the animation department, which was a big deal. And it was a surprisingly good hit. And people didn't think, I was like, oh, this might be a test run for more creations like this, because it did give me Sailor Moon vibes. But you had a boy band in there that was singing. You had real life singers, and their music is top the charts. They eat that stuff up. Yeah, but the K-pop,
go ahead.
The K-pop thing is a huge deal. So they were going to get an audience no matter what. Like if I didn't watch it, they were going to have a K-pop audience tune in, and that audience is already huge in itself.
Yeah, exactly. And also too, like it's interesting because the woman that put it together, her husband actually put together, I think it was Kipo, which was another animated series on Netflix, was also really, really good. And so them two combined are just killing it at this point. But in general,
it's worth noting that Sony did not really think much of this when they did it. So the deal that they originally put it together to release themselves, and they were like, it's probably not, animation is kind of on a slight downslope for film releases. So they decided to license it to to Netflix. And I think they sold it to Netflix, not licensed it. And so I think they bought it for like 20 million or something like that. And Sony lost out on gajillions of dollars because it's been the number one thing on Netflix for the last month now, 2 months. I think it's the single biggest revenue or profit generator for them in who knows how long. And you know this because the only time that they ever tout their numbers is when something's a hit. So yeah, there was yet another in the string of historical blunders and missteps that Sony has made over the last 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, if they didn't do it, we'd be surprised, right? So I think that's one good thing about, like, at the very least for this year, that at least that narrative has started to kind of hit more, like kind of like what D'Angelo was saying with those films, even on the the commercial front with things that weren't previously there. Even like Minecraft, again, which has not been a television or a film IP out there. This the first film was the first time it was out there, but it's huge with children. So Minecraft is all the young kids play it. So when they made a movie about it, it went gangbusters. I think that's the highest grossing film of the year. But again, does
that count as original IP? That's an adaptation.
I think so.
Wouldn't it be?
No, because it's a video game. There's no story from the video game.
But it's
it's an adaptation. It would be an adaptation, even if the story is something that they have to piece together just based on, because it's not.
Original, it's from something else that they're coming.
Yes,
from, right?
Exactly.
So according to the Google machine, what qualifies as an original film is something that refers to a movie that is new to the screen, meaning it's not a sequel, remake, or adaptation of an existing work. So Minecraft does not qualify,
which confirms exactly what we just said.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Wow, Minecraft is the second highest grossing video game of all time. That is
that's another one. I've been playing it for like 20 years.
Yeah, but I don't. It's another one I don't get, but I get
it's not in our. It's where we've aged out of most of, if not all of those things.
I wonder, do kids still read after a certain point? That's what I'm wondering. do teenagers still read? I mean, or did it stop after 10?
And so to bring all this home, right? The top 10 grossing films of 2025, which number one, we haven't even talked about, which is the number one film in the world. Neza 2, it's a Chinese film, animated. It's based off of a Chinese mythology, all this other stuff. That's $2 billion. It's because it was big in China and it just got to America. So that's a whole other thing. Number 2 is Lilo and Stitch, existing IP. Number 3 is Minecraft, video game. 4, Jurassic Park World, of existing IP. How to Train Your Dragon, live action of an existing IP. F1, that's original. Superman, DC. Mission Impossible, existing IP. Fantastic Four, existing IP. And Detective Chinatown 1900, which is another Chinese film. So those are the top 10 grossing films of 2025 so far, and only one or two, I should say, are not existing of IP stuff, which is kind of wild.
Wow.
Yeah, man. That's what it is, yo. Neza 2 is a big deal.
Blown away that Jurassic World made money.
Oh, yeah. I mean, people like dinosaurs.
I mean, there's a trend. There's a trend that we're seeing here, right? Is that these sort of mindless goofball movies are actually making money because they are stupid and they don't have any kind of, unique plotting or clever execution. Look at that list. Out of all of that, probably the number one is the only mostly original thing on there. F1 is original, but not, because it's telling the story of that whatever the racing and F1
F1 is a good stuff. And the F1 film is a good film, but it's a good film, but it's also propaganda for the sport of F1. And it's bankrolled by the racing commission that runs F1. So there was a lot invested in making it cool and interesting. And to be fair, from what I understand, a lot of people, mission accomplished, because a lot of people who saw the movie because it's a Brad Pitt film, or because they like the brother from what was the Cam? What was the name of the
Snowfall?
Idris.
Yeah,
Snowfall.
Yeah.
Yep.
Snowfall.
Yep.
Thank you. So between those two people, I think that a lot of eyes were on it just because people like those actors. And from a technical perspective, as a technical nerd and technical professional in media, I gotta tell you, some of the stuff that they were doing in terms of how the film was shot for something that wasn't shot in IMAX was pretty good. So, there was a lot of investment in terms of the appearance of the film, both in terms of the sexy actor factor and the technical aspect, and how it was written. It was, it was a paint by numbers, but a good paint by numbers film. So I can see
out of all 10 of those films, the number one is something original, and the number 10 is something original. And you know what those have in common? They are not American films. Everything else is produced by an American studio, and every single one of them is a franchise, a sequel, or some big $1 billion promo, which is what F1 was.
So
and then also
hold on. To drill down on that, what do you think that foreign film companies are doing differently, D'Angelo, that American film companies are not? That lands 2 spots in that top 10 category.
They're doing what they always do. They're taking chances, and fortune favors the bold, which is what they're doing. They're taking stories that are probably unique to wherever they're coming from, whatever region or country they're coming from, and they tell those stories in America, and it has a broader appeal. And I also think right now the world is just sour on America. So in addition to the fact that half of Hollywood is unoriginal, look at these titles. There is nothing original about most of this stuff, except Sinners, except everything else is a sequel or a remake. You got Naked Gun starring Liam Neeson, a remake of a comedy film that was just, let's just face it, it was okay, it was good, but nobody needed more of the Naked Gun. And then everything else is just totally unoriginal. Karate Kid, Legends, what is
Final
it?
Destination,
Mickey
Bloodline.
17 was original, but it made no money.
Yeah.
You know, so
and by all accounts, it was a good film.
So there's two. All you see is twos and colons and all, because it's stuff that's come on, man. That's the American. This is what America is. It's rehashed. This is the list of America. This stuff. Yes. So this is the American film industry. Sorry, Cam.
Yeah. No. So this is the top 30 or whatever of.
Right. I'm looking at the bottom American half of the list, and they're almost all sequels.
Yeah.
Ballerina.
Yeah. Oh, wait, hold on.
Go
A Working Man. Jason Statham.
I said almost. I was well, yeah. That almost feels like a sequel to The Mechanic and every other Working Man, every other job related film that he's all done.
Of his films, like this, like a sequel or the retirement plan for all of his characters is now in A Working Man.
Yeah, Snow White, Dogman is an original. You know, it's
I'm going to say this.
It's good.
All this list shows me is that people don't watch enough movies. There are good movies out there. It's just that this list is condensed to American movies. People have to go outside the spectrum of watching good movies.
Agreed.
Well, we were talking about 100%. We were talking about stuff at box office. Yeah, right.
No, I'm just saying. In general. Overall, this list just tells me we don't watch enough of variety of different movies because
and you're absolutely right. The average American palette for films is very narrow,
limited,
very narrow. And I mean, you joke with me every time I mention, this is some of the best fight sequences I've seen in a movie, and you're like, in America, and I'm like, in America. I'm not talking about the other. Like, I don't even include foreign action films in the same strata or category as American films because it's not even a fair comparison. You know what I mean? Like, so I can appreciate the fight choreography in an American film.
But let's say Hollywood, not American films.
Hollywood.
Because there are American films. Let's not just say that, put it out there like Americans can't
like America
make films, or it's
absolutely
American cinema hasn't been or isn't still great. It is. We're talking about Hollywood and studio films and films where they spend $200 million, enough money to end Skid Row forever, 3 generations, and those films turn out to be absolute crap, and then they make less than. So it was a big waste. But you're right, Cam. It is about knowing that there's a whole. I say this all the time. There is an infinite number of films out there, and that isn't untrue. There is an infinite number. You can live an entire lifetime and not see most of the films that were made. But if you narrow that down and you think only Hollywood or only, certain markets or whatever, then you're definitely not going to get 100%, not even close to a percentage. Most people haven't seen a good chunk of even American films, you know what I mean? Like, so
right, and that is a great as an absolute.
And I would say I would say like even like I did Criterion Collection for a time, and that was great because I literally just they're like, oh, here are the number 100 top films of all time based on the Criterion Collection, and I was like, all right, I'll just start at number 100, and I just started to go through them, and
it's
but again,
a good
these
list.
Are all films. It's an amazing list. 2, I would not have seen or heard if it wasn't for people like Cam, our homie Paul, other people that were in that study film. D'Angelo, you're another one that actually studied film, and they would like, oh, you should go watch this, you should go watch that, and then that opened up a whole nother world for me. So I think, unfortunately, looking at that list, this list has like, this is the 30 top 30 grossing films in America, and only a third are original. The rest of them are, like you said, are a 2, a colon,
if that,
a dash, a spin-off.
Even a movie like Weapons is takes on the Hollywood formula. You know, there's going to be a protagonist that we want to like, or they give us a reason to like them, and then so even the original ones are still formulaic in that way, and that's another thing that a lot of foreign marketed films have an edge over Hollywood, and to an extent the psychology of American cinema, which is American cinema tends to take on the classic Hollywood and the new Hollywood, Steven Spielberg, George Lucas mentality, which is it has to be easily palatable and it has to have
at the end,
a hope or a happy ending. The hero must win. The hero must win. That was their thing, and because they were the most successful and made the most money, everybody started to adapt that. But other new Hollywood directors like Martin Scorsese, protagonist gets shot in the head in the end. You know, in some movies, Terrence Malick, the same thing. His films, what those films do is they enhance the form of cinema as opposed to just trying to make money, which is why I only hold Star Wars and certain Spielberg films to a certain level. But beyond that, I can name several films in the same category doing the same thing that are 100 times better because they are more true to the cinematic form than just commercial aspect of it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because now I look at how I grew up in the 80s, or Josh in the more late 70s, and even in the 90s, where you saw a lot of these different and like the most ridiculous, especially the 80s. The 80s, like USA Up All Night alone was just all B to C movie schlock. But like the fact that they got greenlit, the fact that they got made, the fact, like they just any idea was this no holds bars in the 80s. It did not matter.
Yeah.
How many
dinner in the movie in the 90s?
Dude, how many Leprechaun movies have there been?
More than that should have ever been. So that should ever.
But look at how many there are. There's like 13 of those things.
Yo, Toxic.
The exact number I believe is 7. 7 Leprechaun films.
Whatever it was. Yeah, it was damn near double digits. But you know, it's Toxic Avenger was amazing. You shut your mouth. But yeah, but the point, you know, the point is no less valid. You know, there was a time when Hollywood, to make the distinction, yes, that Hollywood, you know, took chances. You know, I don't know when, you know, and who was to say that, using the Leprechaun example, who was to say that would spawn 6 sequels? Nobody could have predicted that. They probably were just like, this is going to be a loss leader. We'll put it, you know, we'll do it, but we'll write it down. You know,
let's put some context into that, because it spawned 7 sequels, but 6 of them were straight to video, and only the first one actually got a theatrical release, and I think the second one may have got a limited release in the third.
I think so.
But by the third or fourth, those were going like straight to video on demand, pay-per-view, and they were just they were either panned by the critics or had no critic rating or all. I get what you're saying. I think a better example would probably be something like, you know, Halloween or
Child's Play,
Nightmare, or Child's Play, or Friday the 13th, where
Friday the 13th, right? Yeah,
you don't need. There's 13 Jason films, and Jason can only murder so many counselors, and
in
Michael Myers can kill. Well, at the same location apparently. So like
Jason 10 in space.
Jason X was in space, and it would have been better if the B movie hadn't died by that point, because Jason X is totally the classic B movie. It's the Lexa Dole was in that movie, so and that was like that was young Lexa. Like she was the protagonist, the final girl, as they called it, the final girl. That's
Lexa Doig is just like eternal because she looks almost exactly the same as she did then today.
In that, she looks exactly the same now as she did in that film. Just you could tell she was in her early 20s in that film, but than now. But still, she was great. She was okay, and the movie was just crap.
And to give context, Lexa Doig is an actress that's been in Andromeda. She's been in Stargate. She's been in a bunch of like classic sci-fi television. And then that
super
was
nerd queen.
Yeah, she's a nerd queen. She's like she's a less prolific Filipina version of Katie Sackhoff in terms of she shows up in a lot of stuff. She was in Chucky season 1. Like she shows up in a lot of sci-fi, horror, fantasy, and that's kind of been as a character actor, kind of been her career, really. But if you have, as we have, traveled the nerd highways, you'll run into Lexa Doig a few times.
And so, like, again, going back to what Cam was saying earlier, it's just like, yeah, people aren't watching. I mean, it's crazy because right now you probably have the most access to film and television in your entire life, in the history of the world.
Probably too.
Literally, everything is at your fingertips. You can watch anything. Mm-hmm. And back to Cam's credit, yeah, people aren't watching film. They're watching whatever the slop that gets kind of fed to them. There's not that much discovery. There's not that much sharing in that aspect of it. I mean, I think some people are starting to. That's what people are starting to like. Podcasts like ours, other podcasts are starting to bring in these like niches of like, hey, if you like this popular thing that everyone likes, you should check out these other 5 things that are probably better and probably worth the time. So I think those are those types of things that we can start to, even on our end, in terms of like, how can we help people watch better stuff? And we can start to do that a little bit as ourselves. Because again, we're watching a bunch of stuff too. But one of the biggest things I've learned talking to more Gen Z, and I've been doing a lot of Gen Z research, it's a whole other thing. But it's not that they have a lack. It's not that they don't care or they like ignore it. It's just they have a lack of curiosity. Yeah, they just don't know, and they have a lack of.
They don't know that they don't know. That's the other thing. They don't. It doesn't even occur to them to look outside of which is, I think, I hesitate to want to sound like we're the old guys, but I think we come from a mold of searching things out, whether it was music. Once for people like us, once we sought out the top tier commercial hip hop of the world, immediately the thought came to us, well, what else is out there? And so underground hip hop from, if you live on the East Coast, hip hop from the West Coast, and just the popular NWAs of the world, but there's this whole other far sides of the world, and the breeze ever flow into the world that people don't know about unless you really dig and peel back a couple of layers of the onion with the thing that you're into.
But we had to do that, right? Their generation we did, because a lot of times it wasn't convenient like it is for them, like where they can just go literally to the computer in their pocket and find what they're looking for, and that's that, right? So
but we wanted more, but again, there was an interest. I
think it was the way the world was set up versus how it is now, and I think they haven't gotten to that point where they can. And I'm seeing this in students, right? It's from an objective perspective, like we've crossed the threshold where now the world is no longer designed for us. So now we can reflect and see how in which it was at one point, because each of us are different age groups. Some of you, a couple of you are closer than you are with me. So the world was different each time. I remember that it was a cultural thing to go to the library, to make that a weekend trip, even as a teenager or younger. And I don't see that happening now. And it's not because they're not thinking to do it as much as it is the world has changed, and they were not old enough to see it before, so they don't have that context. Now the culture is not go to the library on the weekend. Now it's like, well, play the game, or you have a library on your iPhone.
Yes. Can I add some context to both of you guys' conversations about how we digest music, just content in general, and specifically music and movies? So, yes, there was a time when we were younger, we would actively go out and search, especially in music. DJs would put new music for you to listen to because they were pushing new boundaries. The whole music game is a different beast when it comes to radio stations and how they put forth new music, but DJs were there to break new music for you. You listen to it and you'd be like, yo, I got to go hear this. Let me go to the swap meet or the record store, word of mouth. We had shows like the Wake Up Show in our era when we would listen, and there's still shows like that still break new ground, but they're very niche and very specific. Where back in the day you would hear it all the time. Now, I don't go out looking for music. However, I do have platforms from trusted sources that I've vetted myself, where when they say, "Oh, this new music is out," because they're not putting you with the same old. I'll check that out, and that'll be my new way of getting new stuff. Same thing with movies. I have friends who avid movie watchers. Their palette is they have a plethora of movies they watch. They don't watch the typical stuff, the American or Hollywood cinema. They go out. So I get a lot of my recommendations from them because I trust them and I'm friends with them and I know I've broken bread with them. And so for me, that is my way of getting exposed to other types of film outside of the normal stuff that in Hollywood structure that we've been getting fed to us. So it's the game has changed. The landscape has changed and how we integrate new stuff. And again, I've been fortunate to have outlets to show me that there's other movies out there. And what we try to do, this is a little segue for our Discord, is to put forth new information of movies that we're watching instead of the same old Marvel or whatever, semicolon, part 2, part 3, part 2, whatever. And we'll try to get that information out there, but you have to you got to know somebody if you're not actively engaging in those, because again, we get it differently. Like you're right, D'Angelo. A lot of people don't I go to the library for different purposes now. I've been reincorporating the library because I have a young one and I go to the library for a whole different reason. But however, I still go to bookstores. Yeah. It's just my whole thing is that I'll buy an ebook if it's like the last resort, if I really want to read something, but I still like buying a paper or hardback, going into the book. Like I said, it's like going into the music store, getting that vinyl. It's something about that, man. I like that. It's convenient to get the download, but I'm still holding on to that way of getting a book. I just don't go to the physical book. So my media. Yeah. So I don't go to the library for like what I used to. I go for different reasons, but I still go to the library. And and sometimes when I go to the library, and I'm getting off topic here, but it's just like, oh yeah, I didn't know they had this. And so it's reigniting a spark in me to revisit the library for different reasons now. But it's cool though. So
and now you can share that with your daughter, which is an even more special thing because she's going to be in a generation where that's not at the forefront, right?
Yes.
Let's go to the library and let's,
find a book
and feel, or exactly, or even to, like Barnes and Noble, which has a Starbucks or a cafe inside, and they allow you to grab books and go and have coffee and read them, and then decide if you want to purchase them. Nolan was, and before we get to the next topic, Nolan was saying this about physical media, and that
he's talking about Christopher Nolan, the director.
Christopher Nolan, sorry, yes, Christopher Nolan. Mm-hmm. The film director was saying that he was trying to encourage people, not just for his films, obviously he wants them for his film, but just in general to go out and buy physical media again, because there's nothing like it. And Josh and I had this conversation when he encouraged me to watch Kingdom of Heaven from 2004, 2005. And I did, but I watched it streaming. Josh was raving and ranting about the audio, so I knew I was in for a treat. And I have a 5.1 surround sound home theater. but I was not as impressed as I knew I was supposed to be because the audio was compressed on that streaming in the streaming. Now, obviously, the general, consumer doesn't mind, but for a person like me, after my audio technician friend just told me, like, you're in for a treat, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I know he's not lying. I know he knows what he's talking about. So there has to be something wrong with the streaming, and it is. And so
it is. Agreed.
That's kind of the same thing I'm thinking about with libraries and original films and all of it. It's like we have moved away from that as a culture, which is why, and it's reflected in those aspects of pop culture,
the intellect,
like
or the lack thereof.
Exactly. So,
and
cynically,
and also too, and then also too, I mean, it's the same, just like Cam was saying with music, it's the same with, and it goes back to the convenience, right? So people, especially, and I won't even just say just the kids, I'll say everyone at this point, right? Like more and more people are consuming books through Kindle, right? It's convenient.
It's decadence.
Download it. It's super easy. Less and less people are having libraries, right? People, if you have, oh man, I have all these books I got to read. Oh, I'm going to start from here and I'm going to go through my thing. For
me, it's a matter of space. Like, I don't have space. If I had space for every book I wanted to read, oh my God, I'd have probably
have a library in your home. Yeah.
So for me, it's convenient. Like, there are certain books that I will go out and buy.
Yeah.
But I will confess that I probably have as many books in my library as I do on my iPad at this point.
And that's understandable. We all got inundated in it, right? So we all have digital libraries, and I think all of us are now finding our way back to the physical everything, right?
Even with music,
exactly.
MP3s for me, my ear has gotten so dumbed down because even with the advance of the MP3 format, like MP3s when Napster was a thing versus what they are now, the format has been built on top of so much that now the quality is high-ish, but listening to audio in a WAV file or something that's a little bit more of a professional format, there's always this radical difference in all these different colors and nuances and different things that you're going to pick up. And I think it's a metaphor for everything that we're talking about. Everything has been compressed. Everything has been shrunken down.
Yeah.
Everything has been reduced to this diluted bite size, if you will, where the original quality isn't the same. Like, and to Cam's point, buying a book, it's a different thing. It's a different way to engage. You're absorbing the information in a different kind of way than you are reading it on a Kindle, even with the swipe page, or in the Books app with Apple, or any of the other various ways that you can engage. Comixology, reading comic books in a digital format. There's something different about the weighted page in your hand, turning that page and seeing the media on a piece of paper. There's or listening to it, in its original format, listening to it analog versus even the highest quality digital. There's something about dropping a needle on a record and hearing it out of a system that's analog versus something that's completely digitally washed out.
Yeah. And someone mentioned about, and to add to what you're saying, someone mentioned to me that, they don't really think that theaters are as necessary as they once were. And I said, I can see how you might say that, but I also believe that they are, because that's how cinema is intended to be experienced, is in a theater, in that space, in terms of the audio, the visual, and all of that. And I think that's where we're all talking about. You're right. It's compressed, it's pushed out. And now we're getting back. You're seeing more people trying to bring us back to that space where we're actually appreciating the form of a thing and not just what the end product is. That's what we've lost. We haven't. A book you appreciate the form of that book. It's intended for you to sit there and lose yourself as you turn the pages. It's the same with the film. It's not meant for you to see it on a small screen. It's meant for you to see it as the creators intended. So that's where I think we're, to that compression, after we get past that era, we're getting back to appreciating form and sense.
Yeah, and it goes back to convenience versus experience, right? And I think that it's very convenient to watch something at home in your own space, your TV show, your movies, and all that kind of stuff. But when you go to the theater, it's just experience, right? Like I actually still enjoy when I can. I have an Alamo Draft House here. I usually go catch stuff over there, or if I want to get IMAX, do that. Or like if Josh says, "Hey, we have to listen to this at this place," then we have to go there. So. And I did that for Top Gun Maverick, and that was an enjoyable experience. You literally heard every speck of dust and thrust and all that stuff in the air, and you were like, "Okay, we're in the cockpit. Like this is crazy." Yeah. So, right. But you're right. I think going back to all the sequels and the lack of originality, and then going back to what we're talking in terms of the convenience versus the actual experience is, Hollywood is finally starting to see the negative reactions of pushing all this slop over the last 10 to 15 years. And now they're like, oh, okay, maybe we should just, fund 10 films for $10 million as opposed to one film for $1 million. Maybe that might do something,
And they starting to see that they actually, you take less risk that way, because if the film is a hit, it's a hit, and you're going to make a lot of money. If it's not, you'll probably still make money. At worst, you'll break even, but you haven't spent the whole store just to make one thing. Like that's where I feel like Hollywood specifically is always making a mistake, because a lot of that stuff is just
and exactly. also I think the back when. I feel like Hollywood used to gamble. They used to gamble a lot, and they would end up have a lot of movies like a Godzilla -1 that they only spent what I forget how much what the budget was for Godzilla -1, but it wasn't a lot of money. Like they did, and it made what did it track $1 billion at this point? I think.
It's made quite almost.
Off of the minimal investment, and you didn't need much. It was shot in black and white. The VFX shots of Godzilla were very minimal, but when he showed up, it was big. He was bigger than life. He came, he wrecked shop, and then he was off camera, and you had to watch what the beauty of the film was. You watched what the ramifications were of a force of nature, an act of God like a Godzilla, wrecking shop, destroying everything, in his path, and then bouncing because he's like, I don't care about these people. That building's in my way. I'm trying to go over there.
That, you have a story about a character, a kamikaze pilot who started the film before the action of the film started. He was fleeing from doing something he wasn't supposed to do. So you don't need to make him likable to make him interesting. That's interesting. Yes. He's on the run. Yeah. He doesn't buy into the state mantra of we are going to sacrifice you to defeat America. He's like, no. And he ends up on that island, and then something extraordinary happens. A dinosaur appears and starts killing them.
And to give it, so it was a budget was around 10 to 15 mil, and it made 116 mil altogether.
This is what I'm saying.
Now that's
100 times. 10 times, yes. 10 times,
10 times what you spend. And Hollywood can't seem to figure that out, and they have all the money in the world. And they made a Godzilla film that was released around the same time. What did King Kong versus Godzilla make?
Yep, I was just about to put that up. So I put that up. So this is 2004, which is even worse than this year. Like I think out of these, I think there's like I think there's 4 original things. I think everything else is all whatever. But Godzilla, I think that made like Godzilla and Kong or whatever, it made about 196 mil. But I don't think it was, I think it was probably made for 200 mil, something like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was made for about 200 mil, and then
it made about half. Yes,
broke even or something like that.
Yeah, so it was made for 150. It made 572, which essentially with ads and all that kind of shit broke even. But
I'll never forget what I think it was Simon Pegg, I think. He said he was reviewing Godzilla -1, and he says, he's like, now that is a Godzilla film, not rockin' sock'em fucking robot Godzilla.
And what's noteworthy about this top 10 is all of them are not original IPs. Not one of them.
Woo. Actually, top 20, to be honest.
Top 20. Yeah, I'm looking at the next 10, and it's the top 20.
I think actually out of the 30,
Ends With Us is like probably 5. The only. Yeah.
Ends With Us, Wild Robot, Red One, If, and Long Legs, and Civil War. So that's like 5 or 6 out of 32. Yikes.
Civil War was good, and it's another
Civil
example.
War was excellent.
Great cast, great writing. Hit a little too close to home, which makes it kind of scary. And in a way that you can see the difference. So Civil War is what an actual contemplative storyteller filmmaker does versus The Purge. You know what I'm saying? Like The Purge is I'm not knocking The Purge. I enjoy those movies. They're good movie fun. But what I'm saying is Civil War actually tries to have the conversation about what America looks like under those circumstances versus
it tried to create discourse around it.
Exactly. Right. Thank you. Exactly that. Try to create discourse around that idea in a way that made it resonate, as opposed to something as fantastical as the idea that many human beings would sanction a day of murder and rape and all that stuff. I don't buy that as much as I'm a misanthrope. I don't buy that that's in any near future.
Yeah. And it did a good job of, like you said, kind of holding up that mirror, B, showing an expansive world that was super interesting. Because that was the thing that when I was watching it, I was like, oh, I want to know more about the small side stories. Like the main story was interesting enough to follow along, but every time they encountered someone different and they get these little vignettes, like I almost would have wanted it to be an anthology of like, here's a story.
It almost felt that way, right?
Yeah, exactly. And those are the things that were the most interesting thing to me. So the world building in that was really, really cool.
The film changes like the film changes like 10 times before you get to the end, and in the best possible way. And it's something that D'Angelo constantly always says. There's a difference between pushing the plot through the characters and pushing the characters through the plot. You get radically different results when you tell one story versus the other. And the one that's character driven, the one that drives the characters and drives their choices based on the things that are happening around them in the world that you create, makes all the difference in the world when you're telling a story. And that's why that movie was as good as it was and as well received as it was.
Yeah. And then going back to those experiences, because then it adds to that dialogue, right? Now you're talking about it. Oh, we just saw this thing. What did you think about it? You want to have those conversations where
it's relatable.
You watch,
it grounds it into your humanity.
And like you might watch, say like I watched Happy Gilmore 2, and it was funny and there was a bunch of cameos, but after I watch it, that's pretty much it. I'm like, oh, that cameo was cool. Oh, that was fun. That was entertaining. But I'm not having a dialogue about it. To your point, you watched Happy Gilmore 2. We talk about everything that we watch. I just found out that you watched. I'm just finding out right now as we're recording this that you watched Happy Gilmore 2. Had no idea. Why? Exactly the point that you just made. There's no need for conversation around that. There's nothing that, and it's not because it's silly or not because Happy Gilmore, the original, is a comedy classic. But there's nothing about Happy Gilmore 2 or 28 Days Later or any of the other films that are in any of the lists that we've ran off, the movies that we've all rattled off that we've seen on our own, that we were just like, hey, there's no need for conversation around those things. When Cam watches something that is an international film that he knows nobody else has seen,
He does not gatekeep, and he does not shut up about it. He will let you know it's a conversation piece, and it's a conversation piece even if he's the only one who saw it. It's still a conversation piece, and it's usually built around, yo, you need to watch this, and here's why you need to watch it. This happened, this happened, this happened, and this happened. There's this new thing that they did. I've never seen a fight sequence like this. I've never seen a film format like this. I've never seen cinematography like this. There's something about it that's original, or takes an idea that's already been thrown out there and, you know, shapes it in a different order in the filmmaking Rubik's Cube that makes it interesting. And I can't tell you in the years that I've known this dude how many times I've been like, yo, have you seen blah, 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 blah? Nope. He goes into instant salesman mode, and suddenly he falls down the rabbit hole, falls down the well of telling you about the film without spoiling it for you. D'Angelo, same way. Cam, same way. We all do this for each other. Like, there's a conversation around these films that a Happy Gilmore 2 simply will not generate.
Yeah. And I think now, you know, to bring this all back home is, as we're starting to see a little bit more investment into original ideas, and there's also a Hollywood scramble for quote unquote new IPs right now in terms of scripts and stuff like that. That's been talked about as well. It will be interesting to see how this all shapes out for this next following year of new things that pop up that we haven't seen before. I mean, you know, you're always going to have the indie scene. The indie scene's always going on. I saw a pretty low budget B movie. What was it? It was Trouble Man with Michael J. White and Method Man.
Which is
no.
It is a remake.
It is a remake of the
70s classic,
Yikes.
which had one of the best soundtracks ever.
Marvin Gaye.
And this is the part where this what fails me, where I'm like, okay, Again, Michael J. White, it has been fun doing parodies of classic types of tropes of blaxploitation and that kind of stuff, and done it pretty well. He did a blaxploitation.
Black Dynamite was good.
Black Dynamite was excellent. That was one of my that's one of my favorite comedies of the last 20 years.
Yes, Black Dynamite. I love that one.
Yeah, and so for Trouble Man, like it's unfortunate because it's like I think he was trying to do something serious-ish. And it just was like, come on, man. Like, it's like just what do you do? Like, Orlando Jones is in it, and Method Man's in it, and like, it's just, I'm like, what are you guys doing, man? Like, either go all the way, be funny, or if you're gonna make something, like, if you're really gonna try to do it, really try to do it. But it was just so half-assed. It was just like, ugh, it hurt.
Well, that's why and when you do blaxploitation is not a genre. It was an era, a period, a movement that lasted from 1970 to 1971 to be specific, with Cotton Comes to Harlem, and it ended around 1972-3 with Superfly Chef. But the stuff that came after that, Blackula maybe, the stuff that came after that, that was pure. That's when it became a parody of itself. You know, when you got Dolomite and movies that were later called blaxploitation, they were outside of the heyday of that era, where it was like Red Fox was in Cotton Comes to Harlem. Like that was the period where it was worthy of talking about. It still is to this day. You know, Cleopatra Jones, Coffee, like these were titles that, you know, they're classic in the canon of Black cinema, but they cannot be remade because they were made for a specific period in time. It's not that they don't age well; it's just that they never stepped outside that space and time, and they don't need to. They were meant for that period. They don't work.
And classics and certain classics should remain classics. Like, you don't have to remake. Everything doesn't have to be advantaged as an IP. Like, some things just all right, leave it alone. It was its own thing, and it was good. And it was good. Like, you put it perfectly. It was good for the era. It was good for the time, but it doesn't need to be rehashed or remade or, reimagined for 2025. Like, why?
Yeah, and also the last thing I'll say, we can move on from this not good film, is that like Trouble Man, like the crux of the film was the written, produced, and performed album that Marvin Gaye did with the film. Like that was a big part of the film. And in this
It was
one,
conceptualized,
like,
right?
Yeah, this one was just a bunch of Negroes making a film and then calling it Trouble Man. And like the score, the soundtrack, everything else was just like all over the place. Like you could tell they didn't put any effort of linking the music with the actual film. Like I would have been like, oh, Raphael Sadiq is doing all the music for this, for the score and the stuff. Okay, because this could be interesting, mirroring those two things together. But they completely just literally took the name, invited some homies to make some stuff, and even the action's not. It just again, but going back
the
to
action's not good.
Yeah. So, but going back to those things where, you know, instead of sitting down and making something original like a Black Dynamite, or even though I think it was the Outlaw Jesse something Black or something like that, I watched that too. Super silly, but again, fun and enjoyable, and they're fully embracing what they're doing. Where this one, it almost felt like he was trying to do a serious film, and they were like, oh, let's not do that. Like writing was bad, delivery of lines is bad, like all those types of things.
Like John Singleton's Shaft. Again, you just cannot do it. It doesn't work outside of this 1970s. We don't get Shaft. It doesn't work.
And you could have made that. You could have made Shaft. You could have made that film and just named it something else, and it would have been okay.
I agree,
because I mean, Jeffrey Wright is Dominican was one of the most hilarious things to come out of that movie. You know what I mean?
But Christian Bale was the villain, a racist villain.
Yeah,
you know,
you had some things that made that movie work in a certain type of way, but Shaft. Just remove the container of being a Shaft film and let Sam Jackson do what he does.
Just create a whole new badass detective character that's incomplete for whatever reason, leather in the summer of New York and all black.
Yeah.
And go ahead, let him and just call him something else. He don't need to be Shaft. What was funniest about that was when they tried to bring it back to the original and have Richard Roundtree in it as John Shaft, which I thought was hilarious, and it just fell apart. But anyway, you can go on down the rabbit.
Well, yeah, and like the last thing I'll say is it had my favorite line: "It's my duty to please that booty." The fact that they wrote that, the fact that they actually shot that, and the fact that they released it, balls. There's no balls like that.
And I think Richard Roundtree Shaft does say that, or he says something like that, but
something along those lines. Yeah.
But it's totally in context when he says it, and it doesn't, and because it's the first time it was said, and given the circumstances, and again the era, the movement, what was going on, it made sense. It was in context. You didn't laugh at it the way you laughed when you heard Sam Jackson say that line, who had never been sexualized in any way before that point in his movies. Like most of the time, he's very muted in terms of his sexual relationships in films. Him and Will Smith was all but basically celibate in most of his film. He was castrated in most of his film.
And to your point, you know, in the context of 1970, whenever that was made, saying something like that was some cold shit. That was the pinnacle of cool things to say, because people would do things like that in Black lexicon everywhere in America. People would say things that were rhymey, you know, that kind of thing. If you wanted to like make a point or, you know, put your stamp on a point or emphasize a point, that was something that people did. Now, like doing that, you just kind of like, it's 2000, whenever that movie was.
That was the year 2000. It was 2000.
Yeah.
It was released in either 2000 or 2001.
Yes, because my daughter was 1 year. Yes, my daughter was one. And they actually filmed some of that on the block I used to live on New York Avenue.
They definitely filmed a lot of it in Brooklyn. Yep.
In Brooklyn. Yeah. So, you know, it just, you know, you have to take it, like you say, you have to take these things in context and not just make them, you know, well, he said it in the first one, so 50 years later we can make a film and he can say it in that one. It's not necessary.
Only Dolomite's
and it's
lines
completely
have
out of
aged
context.
like only Dolomite's lines have aged like that, and you can still say them, and they're funny, and you laughing because it's because it's a Dolomite line.
Give the people one. What's your favorite?
My favorite though, I can't because maybe on the Discord I'll talk about my favorite Dolomite lines.
One of those. Do it true.
Yeah.
Copy that. I tried to bait you and you didn't fall for it. All right, cool.
No. Yeah.
Wisdom.
I'm the professor.
Wisdom.
Man. Come on.
Go check out our Discord, please.
Hell yeah. So you can check us in there. All right. So to wrap this specifically, I'll throw it back to everybody. What is one thing you would want people to go look up or go be curious about or go see about that they might not normally be like a little bit off the beaten path in terms of like a film or maybe even a TV show, if that's the case, that people wouldn't, that's not like, heavily marketed or anything like that. It's something that you would want to, you would encourage. No. It could be anything. Okay. We'll make it open for everybody. Just makes it easier, but just something that's new to them, I should say. Not necessarily new, but something new to them.
I'll start.
All right, go ahead, D.
I would recommend to everyone a film called Nothing But a Man. It stars Ivan Dixon and Abby Lincoln. It's, I believe, a movie. I believe it's the 60s, but I will confirm that. And Ivan Dixon is, a lot of people would recognize him from when he's older. He was in what's the name of the movie? Oh, Car Wash. But he's been in quite a few things. But this film, Nothing But a Man, which was directed. It was released in 1964. It was a true independent drama, and it was directed by a filmmaker named Michael Reamer, who and he co-wrote the film with Robert Young, and they were both two Jewish men. And it tells the story of Duff Anderson, who's an African-American railroad worker in the early 1960s, who tries to maintain his dignity and stuff in Alabama. But it deals with oppression and discrimination. But Anderson must also come to terms with his troubled relationship with his own father, a drunk who, abandoned him. But it's one of those important films. In 1993, it was added to the United States National Film Registry and labeled as culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. It's one of my favorite films. Criterion has a version of it that's available on Blu-ray and 4K. I own that copy, talking about physical copy and owning it. But I recommend it. Nothing But a Man. Michael Reamer, starring Ivan Dixon and Abby Lincoln. 1964 release.
Nice. Cam?
I'll recommend an old movie. It's called The Dutchman. It was directed by, hold on, let me see this. It was based off Amari Baraka, but who wrote the screenplay adaptation. But it was directed by Anthony Harvey, who I think I remember he directed The Glass Menagerie for TV. These are other familiar work that if you go to Google, you'll probably familiarize yourself with. But it has Al Freeman, who's an underrated actor, but he was most notably known as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the Spike Lee film Malcolm X. Go check that out. Really worth it. You can actually find it on YouTube. Like, it's on
Al
there.
Freeman is probably one of the most underrated Black character actors, legendary Black character actors. A lot of people know him, like Cam said, from Malcolm X. That was probably the most prolific film. But by that time, he was an older man. He had done a lot of work.
Yeah.
Before that, so he's worth looking up. Just checking out his filmography in general.
Yeah. So go check out The Dutchman.
Yeah, I'll go. I was gonna say it's a classic. It's a Dog Day Afternoon with Al Pacino, 1972.
That's Sidney
75.
Lumet, right? Sidney Lumet.
Sidney, yep, directed by Sidney Lumet, and it's a super. It's a crime drama, they call it, but it's one of those ones where I'm not even going to tell people what it is. You got to watch it so you can kind of see the motivations. But it's basically about a robbery that goes awry, and it's Al Pacino not being Al Pacino, which is actually the coolest thing. It's when he's still coming up as an actor, so he hasn't had his iconic roles yet or anything like that. So he's still acting, and so he's not like almost the character of Al Pacino.
The caricature.
He's not the what they call star. He doesn't have the star persona yet.
Yeah,
exactly.
He's not doing the outsized stuff that he's known for now.
This is what around the same time as the first Godfather, right?
Yes, I believe
Godfather.
So.
I think it's like they're only about a couple years apart from each other. Dog Day Afternoon, because he was the star of a lot of new Hollywood filmmakers, right? So like he was in Scorsese, he was in Sidney Lumet's films. I think he did some stuff with Peter Bogdanovich. And he also, anyway, not to go too far, but that's a good one as well.
And it's a good one, and it's one because it's like it's a mid-70s crime drama. It's based on a real life event, but also just one of those things where when you watch it, you're watching it and you're thinking it's one way, and then when the reveal of what the motivations are, you're almost like, oh, and it's 1975, so you're kind of like, it's a jarring thing that if they. And I've heard that they're going to remake it sometime soon. I hope it doesn't happen. But
in today's context, the reveal wouldn't hit as
100%.
Because that was dealing with a really taboo thing in society at the time.
Exactly. But it has a lot of those things where it's a really awesome director. It's Al Pacino before Al Pacino. All the supporting cast is really good. It's a story that's super interesting, but it's just one of those things where if you have not really delved into a lot of 1970s cinema, it's a good one. It won the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay, and so that's just one of those things where like the 70s as a genre of movie making is another just interesting thing.
I love the 70s, and the 60s, 70s, and 80s. To me, that was like one of the best periods for cinema.
Can I add something else? Cam, speaking of Pacino, Serpico is another good one. I think people should check out. But also speaking, because we're in this realm, and I haven't seen in a long time. Michael Mann's Thief with James Caan, excellent movie. I'll end on that.
Very good one.
That's I almost forgot about that. You're right. Josh, you can end this off.
I'm going to go in the opposite direction and go with a foreign film that came out, I want to say 3 years ago, called Sisu. It's a foreign film, Finnish, and it's set in 1944 in the Lapland War between Finland and Nazi Germany. And basically, it's less historical, less a historical film, and more a stylized, gory action film. I won't go into too much detail, but it basically follows this one guy who, it's sort of it's a revenge film set in that era. And it is wild action. They don't make films like this anymore. And the fact that it's a Finnish film, sort of bigging up a lot of the war heroes from that era during the Lapland War, names that you probably have never heard, makes it, for me at least, being a low-level history buff, it made it interesting. It was written and directed by Jamin Hollander, and produced by, I forget who, and it stars Jorma Tomila. There we go. And I think one of the Skarsgårds is in it. I forget. But it's a wild movie. It's set in an era where you don't really expect that kind of movie to take place. But it's a very good movie if you're into just mindless action with a little historical context to it. I think it's a really fun romp. It's not, you're not going to get a magical history lesson out of it, so you're not going into it for that. But you're definitely watching it because it's in the vein of the 70s, 80s, revenge film where a guy is just going through this swath of different, of different henchmen and different henchmen and different adversaries to try to achieve XYZ goal, or to, and to avenge certain things. I don't want to go into too much detail, but it's ridiculous fun.
That's dope. But yeah, so people, there's so much stuff out there. You definitely can find it. You don't have to always like, as much as we watch all the blockbuster stuff, some begrudgingly, some because that's just what it is. We do watch a healthy amount of other things that kind of inform on that, so that we're not always stuck into the paradigm of blockbuster movies and over bloated budgets and CG fests. But yeah, man, we're out there watching good stuff, and check those recommendations and enjoy. See you guys in the movies, and we out.
Peace. Later.